Every time you dig through real Ice Age archaeology, not the romantic myths, but the cold data, you start to notice a pattern. These were people living in temperatures that would freeze exposed skin in minutes, travelling with nothing but animal hides, stone blades, and fire that had to be guarded like treasure. Yet they survived for tens of thousands of years in conditions that modern preppers equipped with Gore-Tex, synthetic insulation, butane stoves and ultralight shelters would struggle with after a single bad week. The surprising part is that their advantage wasn't superior tools, it wasn't superhuman toughness, it wasn't even their shelters. What actually kept them alive was a single approach to survival that still beats modern prepping even with today's materials and knowledge. It's so effective that most emergency manuals don't teach it anymore, not because it doesn't work, but because it requires mindset, not equipment. And if you learn it, you'll understand why Ice Age groups survived megafaunal winters with stone knives, while modern people can freeze within walking distance of their own cars. Ice Age peoples survived by mastering layered redundancy instead of relying on single solutions. Modern prepping culture is obsessed with gear categories: one knife, one stove, one shelter, one water filter, one food plan. The Ice Age mindset was the complete opposite. Nothing existed on its own. Food wasn't gathered as calories. It was gathered as clothing tools, lighting glue, waterproofing fat fuel bone structure and sinew cord. Shelter wasn't a tent. It was a system of snowpack insulation, mammoth bone framing, earth-burning hide, layering grease sealing, and interior fire management. Even hunting wasn't hunting. It was obtaining multiple survival variables from one action. This layered approach meant that failure rarely cascaded, because no system depended on a single point. In modern terms, this is redundancy without weight. It's having, multiple ways to solve a problem built naturally into how you live. Ice Age people did not carry more. They carried smarter. A single hide coat could be worn, used as a sleeping layer, turned into a windbreak, or even used as a sled. One stone scraper could build shelter, process food, prepare fuel, and maintain clothing. It's an approach that turns necessity into advantage, and that's why it still outperforms modern prepping that relies on purchased gear. Their shelter designs used environmental physics instead of manufactured insulation. Most Ice Age homes were not fragile tents, but semi-permanent structures that manipulated temperature gradients far more effectively than many modern off-grid cabins. Groups in Eastern Europe and Siberia built dwellings using earth berms, snow compression, bone frames, and deep-set floors. By lowering the floor below ground level, they created a thermal pocket insulated from wind and temperature swings. Thick hides layered over bone acted like living roofs, shedding condensation instead of trapping it. Snow piled on the exterior served as a natural insulator with an R value so high that it rivaled modern spray foam. Inside, heat was retained through radiant mass rather than exposed flames. Stones heated in the fire pit continued releasing warmth for hours, creating a steady thermal environment instead of sharp temperature spikes. This approach is the same principle behind masonry heaters and Scandinavian thermal mass stoves, technologies that outperform many electric systems during outages. To apply this today, a modern off-grid builder can berm soil against the north wall of a cabin to create a thermal shield. Build a lowered cold sink entry area to trap dense cold air. Or use compact interior stone mass near a wood stove to hold heat long after the fire dies. Food resilience came from converting scarcity into storage instead of hunting for abundance. Ice Age groups didn't assume food would be available daily. They lived with the expectation that tomorrow could fail. That certainty shaped their storage strategy. Meat wasn't eaten fresh unless absolutely necessary. It was dried, smoked, buried in frozen pits, or sealed in rendered fat to create nutrient-dense, pemmican-like reserves. Fish were dried on frames and stacked for months. Fat was never wasted, because it functioned as the highest energy survival fuel available. In a modern context, this is the opposite of how many preppers operate. People stockpile calories, but rarely convert those calories into long-term zero-electricity reserves. One practical step is to focus on foods that store naturally without refrigeration. Dried meat, jerky, tallow-based mixes, fermented vegetables, root crops stored in soil or sand, and fish preserved through smoke. This approach means that even without electricity, you maintain a dependable baseline. Their mobility strategy was designed so no single loss could kill them. Mobility wasn't about speed, it was about maintaining function after equipment failure. Ice Age travellers carried items that could be repaired or regenerated. A stone knife could be resharpened indefinitely. Clothing made from hides could be patched with bone needles and sinew. Footwear was layered, adaptable and replaceable. Even shelters on migration routes were often pre-built seasonal stations that could be reused year after year. The core Ice Age survival advantage was mental architecture, not equipment. This is the part most modern survival content never addresses. Ice Age people didn't wait for disaster to improvise. Improvisation was the baseline. They lived in a constant state of assessment, adaptation, and system layering. Nothing was taken for granted. Everything had multiple functions. That mindset, more than any shelter or tool, is why they survived environments that kill unprepared modern hikers every year. If you found value in learning the survival logic that carried humanity through the Ice Age, help grow this channel by subscribing, sharing this video, and leaving a comment. Backyard Wisdom is all about rediscovering the old ways that still outperform modern assumptions, and your support keeps these deep dive investigations coming.